Hi, I'm Jonathan Ward.
I'm Kimberly Lane.
I'm Sonia Jante, and together we're unlocking leadership. We're three experienced executive coaches with very different disciplines. In every episode, we take the question from a real client and provide key insights to address their challenge from our three different perspectives. It is a holistic approach to understand challenges and opportunities. So let's get to it. Our question today is from Savannah in San Jose. I'm mentoring a high potential manager. He shared one of the weaknesses that he has is the anxiety he feels in pressured business situations and the impact this has on his ability to deal with the chaos that often happens in the part of our industry. Do you have suggestions that might help him learn how to manage challenging everyday business situations? Jonathan, what can Savannah recommend to help this manager manage his stress in high pressure situations?
Well, that's a great question, Savannah. Thanks for sharing that with us today. Anxiety is a natural reaction to stress. The fear of the unknown in a constantly changing environment is one of the things that contributes a lot to anxiety. Part of the way we develop our ability, I guess, as we grow as managers is just to have the opportunity to experience this and work our way through it time after time. It's a learned type of thing, but dealing with it now as you're trying to build your chops as a leader can be a tough kind of thing to do. One of the things that I might advise is to, first of all, acknowledge that you're feeling anxious. Be aware of when that feeling is coming up to you. Think about physically, how does that make you feel? Are you feeling it in your stomach? Are you clenching your fists? Are you feeling tightness in your neck and your shoulders? Um, are you overeating? Lashing out at people? Are you having difficulty concentrating? There are lots of different ways that anxiety might show up. So look for those kind of telltale signs for you, first of all, that you're feeling anxious. That's a good way to kind of catch yourself before it becomes to take over you. Then you can start to be thinking about what actually triggers that for you. Is it certain people? Is it certain types of situations? Is it certain meetings that you have, certain responsibilities, the end of month reports, things like that? And then I find often that it's helpful to acknowledge that it's going on there. And sometimes what happens is we're carrying all of this anxiety around in our heads, and it's good just to get it out on a piece of paper. Just sit down with a piece of paper with your journal or whatever it is, and just write down everything that you're thinking about, no matter how ridiculous it seems. Everything that's in your head, if you get it down on a piece of paper, then you can start to deal with it. And then you can kind of start looking at how to separate what's really a possibility versus what are the things that are just really far-fetched and not likely to happen. That's one way to help you kind of deal with that. But again, I think part of it is just catching yourself in the moment and kind of keeping yourself from getting hijacked by that feeling. What do the rest of you think?
Well, I agree with you on the danger of getting yourself hijacked. One of the things that I find when I hear a question like this is that I would say that the internal message this person has, that they may be a very harsh judge of themselves, and so therefore they're constantly criticizing or having an observation that's not positive about what's going on and their ability to deal with it. So I ask, my recommendation is to basically go through three questions when something like this happens. The first question is, what am I experiencing? What do I want to have happen? So it's like there's this stress that I'm feeling, this event that's happening, and I'm perceiving that it's going to go downhill or whatever. What do I really want to have happen? And therefore, what do I want to do now? So that you basically get a sense of like, okay, I understand that there's something going on, but I have a choice about having a different outcome or having a different version of what's unfolding, and then being able to address it in that regard. The other thing potentially is, and Jonathan, you sort of addressed that, is that he uses terms like the chaos of our business. And so potentially reframing the terminology of, the high volume of our business, or the, you know, uh, challenging projects that we're doing here, so that he doesn't always have a negative term that creates a dysfunctional situation in terms of how he views it. Because every industry, every place, I always say, so there's people that are, solving world hunger, and there's people that are dealing with cancer, and there's people that are putting people up in space. Every one of those environments, in addition to your environment, has its own set of chaos, but they all still get the job done. But they probably don't think of it as chaos. If they thought about it that way, they might not get their job done. Something to think about.
Yeah, you both had mentioned just, anxiety is really just this feeling of lack of control. And you, Sonia, asked about just what is the internal message that might be going on such that you're not really confident that you have the ability to be able to deal with the situation correctly or rightfully so. And so just as we talked about in season 6, episode 6, I mentioned the ability to respond, responsibility, trusting yourself and having confidence in yourself that you have the ability to respond in any given situations, and working on that message within yourself. That would be number one. Number two, again, Sonia mentioned the word chaos, rephrasing that. Is this a another opportunity, another changing opportunity within your industry, right? So look at it as, and almost anticipate and know that daily you're going to have these changing opportunities available to you in order to change direction or take advantage of something or grow the business, right? So really just rephrasing it almost to the point of expecting it and knowing it's going to happen, and trusting yourself that you have the confidence, stability to respond, and you have resources around you to help you deal with that, right? So the minute, just as Jonathan mentioned, the minute you feel that anxiety, stop and feel it. What are you feeling? Is it in your stomach? Are you tensing up? Very often, if we would in that moment just take 3 deep breaths, really big deep breaths, it will naturally, one, relaxes you. Number 2, it creates oxygen to your brain, which adds in clarity for yourself, because when we get tense, stress, the oxygen drops within our body, and that only compounds our ability to respond clearly and with clarity. So by taking those deep breaths, that gives you also a moment to pause. So then in that moment, you can discern what is in my control, what is not. What am I possibly making a bigger deal than it is? If I just pause for a second, what truly could be the consequence to this, or what is another option to that? So, in almost too, as Stephen Covey always says, are you responding to what is urgent in that situation? Does it need to be solved right now, in 5 seconds, in 5 minutes, in 5 days, in 5 weeks, or 5 months? And how that, that's got to be a question. So if it is urgent and important, then, take out the urgent and important and deal with that now, and the rest of it, put in kind of some sequential way to deal with it, I guess, because I feel like anxiety comes when we have everything coming at once. We have no control of what's coming. We have no idea how to respond. And if you can parse it out into what is most important, what you can deal with now, and have the confidence and trust in yourself that you can deal with it, it will slowly unravel, and the solution will come to you, would be my point. So we've given you a lot of 3 steps here. So it might be worthy listening again, just to kind of embrace all 3 steps. But that's kind of where I would start with that. Trusting yourself, confidence, take a deep breath, discerning what is in your control, what is not, what is urgent and important, and then go from there.
I'd say, I really like the idea of the deep breath kind of thing. For me, one of my big stress relievers is going for a walk or going out for a run, just getting away from the desk, getting away, unplugging from the computer, unplugging from my phone, and just getting out there and breathing deeply and fast for about a half an hour, and getting some fresh air, things like that really helps a lot. And to go back to what's within your control, you may have seen this exercise called the spheres or the circles of influence, where you draw two concentric circles. The things on the outside are the things that you have absolutely no control over, like government regulation or the pandemic or things like that. You can't do anything about them. Ideally, you just want to try to forget about them if you can. The ones in the middle are things that, or ones in the second layer are the things that you can influence. So that might be some ways that you might be able to work around that. But ultimately, what's in the very center of that is what is directly within your control, and that's basically how you show up every day and how you choose to be there. You're a high potential manager. the company sees good in you. They've put you there for a reason because they have faith in you and trust in you, and kind of help remind yourself sometimes that you are competent, and that's why they put you in that role to begin with.
Mhm. Building on that, Jonathan, one of the things that I mentioned at the beginning was potentially like what are his self messages to himself. And so the mind, we can reframe our mind, we can reprogram ourselves. And so I've actually seen it done where people create a particular statement that is a, reframing statement for themselves, and they put it as part of their screensaver, or they put it
Mm.
where it's really visible. So consistently, there's a new message that you're sending to yourself. I'm powerful, or I'm strong, or I'm a problem solver, or whatever. The other thing is if potentially you really do feel that this takes you to the edge, then you might want to like have the company invest or you invest in some kind of an experiential class, or participate in something that allows you to reframe yourself very quickly in the moment. I actually coached at a company that had put together a training for the leaders that were going to be going through the biggest changes for the organization that year. And it was like a Zen meditation kind of training. And all of them ended up with a little bowl, like a Tibetan bowl, that they could use to create a particular sound that then, if you will, a part of the whole experience was, and so when you hear this sound and you have this, you will actually calm down. And I was coaching somebody who had gone through that class and was sitting actually in her office. Her assistant had said, go ahead and sit in her office. And she walked in and she was all like this. She walked straight over to her desk and she took her bowl and she started making the sound. And as she was making the sound, I saw like literally the tension sort of dissipate. And she said, I'm sorry for ignoring me when I walked in, but this is what I've learned to do to keep myself in a new state. I feel like I'm now ready for our meeting. And I thought, wow, that she was able to go through some kind of training, some kind of experience where she can go in there and shift it that quickly. That was effective. So that's also something one can do.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I love that. Tibetan bowls. That's a great idea. Anything else anybody else wants to add?
I've got nothing left to add. So thanks very much. Yeah, Savannah, I appreciate it. Good
Yeah,
question.
no worries. We all can have anxiety in any given moment. I think it's important just to recognize it and to breathe through it, and know you have the ability to respond and have the confidence and trust yourself, right? So thank you, Savannah, for this wonderful question today. We hope you, our viewers and listeners, learned about tools to manage challenging business situations. To our listeners, if you like the content we shared today, please like this episode and also share and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Unlocking Leadership askthecoaches.com. We look forward to reading your reviews. You can also find Unlocking Leadership Ask the Coaches on Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast platform. If you have a leadership question or would like to reach out to one of our coaches, please email us at info@unlockingleadership-askthecoaches.com. We would love to hear from you. Thanks for joining us today. Tune in next time to find the keys to unlocking your best leadership.